out there to all of my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, that's actually the name of my book. My podcast is Your Way in Your Way. And my number one best-selling book is titled Is Your Way in Your Way. It's a self-discovery guide for women on how to restore yourself, learn from your experiences, and be your true self again. And this podcast are for women who are stuck. And I mean, really stuck. For example, you know how in your soul, it's like something is calling you to do something. If it's to write a book, get a promotion, get out of a toxic relationship, perhaps, or forgive somebody, or you always wanted a family and you're not even and unable to for some reason, but yet maybe adoption's been calling you. Maybe you should adopt, but yet you're reluctant about that. In other words, it's just something that you have not yet made that step or executed. So we talk about topics related to personal improvement, maybe business improvement, personal growth. And I also say that I'm always prayerful that one of these podcasts will touch you. And all of a sudden you will say, you know what? There it is. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to make that move and I'm going to start living my best life on my terms. And today we're going to talk about topics. Well, there is a topic we're going to talk about that's called breaking barriers. It's from real estate to open adoption coaching. That's going to be the name of this podcast. And I'd like to welcome I'm telling her she's in the orange room, and I'm going to take her out and have her come into another orange room. And I'd like to welcome Ayo Haynes to the podcast. And Ayo, what a pleasure it is to have you. And I am just so, like I shared with you before, I'm just out of this world about this topic because I've never even thought about there could be individuals that want children and not maybe even considered adoption. So welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast.
Thank you so much. I loved your opening because it resonates with me so very much. Mm-hmm. And I was stuck, in fact, in my life. And we can explore how that came to me being a coach, but absolutely can testify to say yes to what you have talked about with your listeners.
Awesome. Well, before I get started, I just want to read a little bit of your bio so that my listeners will understand what qualifies you to do what you're currently doing, and also about other things you've done throughout your life as well, which I'm going to call your journey. Ayo Haynes is a dynamic speaker and an advocate who proves that when you courageously pursue your passion, you don't just change your own life, you ignite possibilities in others. After leaving a high-profile TV career and real estate and embracing single motherhood through open adoption, she has discovered that redefining societal expectations can create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth. From challenging traditional views on motherhood to guiding women toward financial independence and personal freedom, her story shows that by living authentically, and I said authentically, and you know, guys, that's what I wholeheartedly believe in, and champion your dreams, you inspire others to do the same. Her insight on open adoption, debunking myths about single parenting, and designing a life on your own terms will resonate with anyone that's eager to turn self-doubt into self-determination. One other thing, she also co-authored a best-selling book through Amazon called Ready, Set, Live: Empowered Strategies for an Enlightened Life. That sounds like a great book, guys, right? Get ready, get set. It's time to live. Wow. So Ayo, tell us about yourself before you embarked on your mission. Now, listeners, this is her mission. Her mission is to empower single women to pursue their dreams of motherhood through adoption. And even though perhaps you may not be single, you have friends that are single. So just know, and perhaps you're the one that may want to think about this as we move forward and go through this interview. So yes, please tell your backstory. Well, first of all, before your mission, tell us a little bit about yourself before this mission came about.
Yes, before this mission came about, I was an actress. I was also a realtor. I was doing both of them at the same time. When one was down, the other one was up. And so it was a really nice flow of income and just, being able to travel. I was still in my 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s doing that before I became an open adoption success coach.
Hmm.
And I have traveled all over the world. I've been to all 50 states. I am someone who sees something that interests them and I go do it. And that was my life, before deciding to become a mother. Although being a mother was always in the back of my mind as a child, even as a child, I envisioned my life with being married with 4 kids, a dog, cat, car, picket fence, all of
Hmm.
that. And I had at different times relationships that seemed like they would go to marriage. But by the time, a
Hmm.
crucial time in my fertility window, I wasn't in a relationship. I had built the career, great, and I had been nationally recognized by real estate boards and been on HGTV selling New York. I had done all these incredible things,
Hmm.
but I didn't have the husband and I didn't have the baby. And
Um,
part of the backstory is I'm a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. My
hmm.
mother was the first African American woman ordained in New York City for the Presbyterian Church.
Uh-huh.
So I'm someone who goes to church. There's an expectation of how your life should be.
Uh-huh.
And I had to have a really hard conversation with her, or what I thought was going to be hard. It was actually easier than I imagined.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not in a place where I'm finding a husband so that I can have a family as it's supposed to happen, supposed to, in quotes.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I said, I think I'm going to do this on my own. And she was supportive. And so my on my own meant that I started with fertility treatments, going to get IUI treatments, IVF treatments. And none of them worked. They depleted my bank account. Thankfully, in real estate, I had built up enough money to be
Yeah.
able to do this. But if
Yeah.
you look at the long-term effect, you're like, okay, this is not sustainable. I can't keep
Hmm.
doing IVF treatments for 15K a pop and
Yeah.
IUI treatments for 2,500 to 5,000 a pop, right? It's not
Wow.
sustainable. And it's
Oh.
really hard on your body physically with the hormones. There's the up and down of whether you're pregnant or not, taking a pregnancy test and
Yeah.
seeing the negative. And
Yeah.
eventually I just said, okay, I have to go a different route. And adoption was not necessarily something I considered. I
Hmm.
had seen it modeled in my family with different family members. And
Hmm.
then with a particular cousin, I had a chance to hold a little baby who changed my life in that
Oh,
moment. And I
wow.
said, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's what
Wow.
I'm doing. If I can do it, you can do it.
Oh, what a great story. I love that story, because I know I have a lot of listeners that want to be married. I'm not sure why. I mean, and I say that, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, a good thing, but I'm just
Right.
saying, why do you want to get married? Is it to have a family or just to have companion, or is it because that's what we were told? We were told when we finished high school and had the opportunity to go to college, we get a job, we get a husband, we get the house with the white picket fence, we have the children and all of that. And when those expectations, which are their expectation, some of my listeners' expectations, when that doesn't happen, they don't feel good. I mean, emotionally, they are not in a good place. And I can say that for myself because I was one that wanted the family and the kids and the marriage and the picket fence. And what happened with me is I was a career girl. I worked in corporate, as many of my listeners are aware, and I was a bit bothered that, wow, I can't, you know, I'm not having any, I don't want to say luck, but uh, there was no one out there that I felt that be comfortable in marrying. And I wanted to reiterate my story with your story because you still had a passion, and for those that are listening still have a passion. If you've not married yet, there's still some things that you have a heart's desire to do. And just listen to Aya. That was her heart's desire, is to have that husband, have that fence. She doesn't have that, but like life goes on. She sounds like that she had some limiting beliefs that she has overcome. And also, so now I would say she is a trailblazer in open adoption. And what could you explain? I know what a trailblazer is, but a trailblazer in open adoption. What is open adoption? What is that?
Yes. Well, first, I want to go back to what you said about your lifelong dream. So that lifelong dream that I had as a older person in my 40s, and actually I didn't come to the term until I was coaching and
Mm,
explaining how I got to this place to clients. And I realized I termed this thing called my life non-negotiable, right?
uh,
Not just a lifelong dream, but what is it that I'm not willing to leave this earth without having
mm,
experienced? And for
yes.
me, it was motherhood. So it's not just a dream, it was a yearning that I have to do this in order
Okay.
to feel fulfilled. And I know that God didn't put me on this earth with this great dream and urge to not
Right.
have that fulfilled. So
Right.
I had to go through the process, as you said, of changing mindset. Am I going to be limited by societal norms, or looking at the reality of my life, the desires of my heart, and say, okay, what is it that you can do to achieve this?
Right.
And so 10 years later, my daughter's now 10. Her story, our story is amazing. It's a miracle in itself. I didn't have a lot of help in navigating the adoption journey, period, and then the open adoption journey. So adoption has you going through the path to become a mother through someone placing their child with you to raise, and that's adoption. And
Io,
you
one thing, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have a question. Were you
yes.
coaching before you start pursuing this adoption? Or you started coaching as you were pursuing, you realized that was something, a gift you had that could help others? Because I understand you in real estate. You did a phenomenal job in real estate. You were on television and all of that. So the coaching start with you pursuing the adoption, open
Well,
adoption?
actually, the coaching actually started when I became a certified mentor in real estate. So I was coaching in real estate,
Okay.
but not in
Okay.
adoption at all.
All
When
right.
I was in it, it was so very new. There,
Uh-huh.
I was experiencing it. There was no way for me to look back and say, "Oh yeah, I could help somebody else." Not at that point. I was
Okay.
still trying to figure everything out myself.
Okay.
But
Okay.
now, 10 years later,
Uh-huh.
and looking at what I have been able to create with the birth family, what I've been able to establish in the relationship with my daughter, um, I realize, oh, you do have a lot to share. And this experience has
Okay.
not been for you to go through to keep it to yourself. You've
Okay.
gone through this in order to share with others who are in the same position, have the same desire, and are either considering never becoming a mother because they can't do it in the normal way, or
Yes.
they just need to find the right person, the right coach to say, yes, you can do this. And I'm going to show you how.
Okay. Okay. So you found someone that helped you.
No, I didn't.
So
I
everything was
figured
on your own. Everything. Okay.
for the
All
most
right.
part, yes, yes.
Okay.
I
All
had
right.
to, I had to figure it out. And I had some ideas of how I was going to be a mother through adoption. Initially, I was standoffish about the idea of being in contact with the birth family for an extended amount of time because I was operating from a record playing that wasn't my record, that I had heard from society. Oh, the
Mm-hmm.
birth family is going to be jealous of you or angry, or, they're the enemy. And so you have that playing in your mind, and that's not necessarily the truth. The truth is
Mm-hmm.
that when birth parents are putting a child, placing a child for adoption,
Yeah.
they want the best for that child. They want
Okay.
to know that the decision that they're making and putting their child with you is going to result in their child having the best possible life that they possibly could have, and that they could not give
Mm.
themselves.
Okay.
So the relationship, if you start with that, if you start with a place of grace, then you understand that there's no need for fear or one party against the other. We're a team because we have a genuine desire for the well-being of that child that we have in
Mm-hmm.
common.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you were okay, because I know there are different reasons why people put their children up for adoption. Like one of them indicated that it's for the child's best interest that they do that. And then there's some they have to, you know. Um, um, and there are perhaps some other reasons, but when you were pursuing that, um, was it a prerequisite for you to adopt someone whose parents wanted to put them up for adoption because they wanted better for them? Or did you know the reason? Did you want to know what the reason was why a child was put up for an adoption? And
I
these
think,
are newborns, right? You wanted to
yeah.
adopt a newborn.
For me, yes, that was always my
Right.
dream,
Okay.
because I always had a dream
Sure.
of being pregnant. So I wanted to
Okay.
know what that felt like. And if I didn't have that opportunity to be pregnant, I certainly wanted the experience of mothering
Okay.
a newborn. Now,
Okay.
newborns are going to be what you are going to adopt if you're looking at a child domestically through a private adoption or through a birth family, right? If you're talking about someone, or the child has been taken out of the home,
Yeah.
or there's some kind of safety concern, then that
Right.
means that the city or state has stepped in, and that
Okay.
child is now probably under guardianship of the
Until.
county or the city.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
little different. That means
Okay.
that child welfare is involved. And then
Okay.
that also is a little bit difficult to, not impossible, but it's going to take a lot more effort to create an open and friendly relationship with the birth parent, because in the situation where a child is removed, their parental
Mm-hmm.
rights are generally um, terminated. And
Okay.
and if you're terminating rights that are not wanting to be terminated, then that can lead to contention. But
Okay.
people
Right.
going,
Good.
birth parents and birth mothers going through the adoption process, they
Mm-hmm.
have already decided that this is best for the child and for them, and they're not going to protest termination of the rights, which means then the adoptive parent can take over the parental rights and be issued those rights.
Good. Great. Thanks for the clarification. So, is there like what agency? I'm sure there are a number of them that you can go to when you're ready to adopt, and what's the criteria that the agency is looking for you to do that?
Well, each agency has their own criteria. You would
Oh,
have to go
really?
online and just
Okay.
go through, look on the internet and see which ones have which criteria. I actually have a list on my website that
Hmm.
people can go to, openadoptionsuccess.com. You can go there, and there's a link to a download that will show you what the bigger agencies are looking for. You can
Okay.
also adopt through a private adoption. It could be
Okay.
someone you know at your church or your work, and they know a young woman who's wanting to place their child for adoption. You don't have to go through an adoption agency. And you can also
Oh, okay.
obviously go abroad, overseas, but that
Okay.
generally is, you're going to be looking at an older child and a lot
Uh-huh.
more paperwork and a lot more waiting.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So, what you decided to go to a certain agency, and if so, why?
Initially, I went to a Christian agency, but I didn't
Uh-huh.
finish at the Christian agency.
Okay.
And I would say that if you're looking at an agency, don't limit yourself to a denomination. You
Okay.
know, you want to choose an agency that has good staffing, that understands what you
Mm.
are looking for, that listens to you, that doesn't impose their wishes upon you. Because we
Mhm.
each have a mindset, not, I shouldn't say mindset, we each have a way of envisioning ourselves as mothers, right? I envisioned myself as a mother who
Mhm.
traveled all over the world with my baby. My motto was have baby, will travel. And I was going to
Okay.
continue my lifestyle of travel.
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
that meant that I needed a child who could keep up with me, right? Basically,
Okay.
physically. So
Uh-huh.
taking a child that had physical ailments or
Yes.
that was neurodivergent or something like that wasn't going to work for the lifestyle
Okay.
that I envisioned for myself. But that doesn't mean that there are single women or couples out there who are graced by God to be able to take on a
Mhm.
baby that has neurodivergency or um, is has some kind of physical ailment, right? There are parents out there for every kind of child out there. That's the beautiful
Okay.
part about it, and that's the beautiful
Okay.
part of adoption.
Mhm.
um and so yeah, don't limit yourself that way. You do your homework, find out if they are they listening to what it is that you want. How much do
Mhm.
they cost? What's their
Mhm.
process like? Are
Mhm.
you as a single woman put on the back burner, or are you presented to birth parents in an equal measure to couples? There's all of those type of things. Do they give you any kind of training? And do they offer classes? Do you
Mm.
want one that's local to you, or are you able to travel across the country at the drop of a
Okay.
dime
Uh-huh.
because you have to get there? So there are all sorts of reasons to choose and look at a particular agency.
Right. So what you're saying is, depending on the agency, they all perhaps ask similar questions, but some of them can be very different. Different
Oh yeah,
questions. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Okay.
you want to also make sure that you are happy with that agency
Uh-huh.
before you give your money.
Uh-huh.
Because I was with that agency and another opportunity for a child came about, and I had literally just paid my money, my down payment, the first payment, when I got the call to be considered for another agency that was local to me. And
Mm.
I called them all happy. I was like, hey, guess what? I got chosen by a birth mother.
Right.
So can you refund my money? They're like, sorry, no. I had
Oh.
already given it. Yeah, per our rules. So you want to be sure
Oh,
which
wow.
agency you're going with. And
Good.
I would say I would not recommend going with an agency until your paperwork is completed. That means that your home study is done, that
Mhm.
you have done all your fingerprints, that you have the A-OK to be able to take a child home from the hospital.
Mm.
I would recommend, going about 6 months or so and looking for yourself to see.
Mm.
You might be able to avoid some costly
Yeah.
payments going by
Right.
yourself. But then, if going by yourself and going that route does not feel good to you, or it's not easy enough, then go with an agency. But just
Right.
make sure that once you pay your money, you're okay with losing it if a baby comes
Mhm.
another way
Mhm.
and not through that agency.
Yeah, and of course, cost is a factor, and it can range from what to what based on your research to
It can
adopt.
range from it can range from $25,000
Mhm.
to $60,000. It really depends. If you're going
Mhm.
overseas, there are more costs
Uh-huh.
involved. It depends on the
Uh-huh.
agency, how small the agency is, or how large it is, how much staff they have, right? It's like any other thing. They have overhead, and so they have to build in costs based on what it means
Mhm.
to have a functioning agency. So,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, women in their 40s and 50s who are professional like you and I, we generally have money saved away, or we have
Uh-huh.
access to money, we have a
Right.
401k, we have
Right.
something, we have disposable income. So that age group generally is able to afford adoption.
Right.
You will have to put money down payments, and they
Uh-huh.
can break it up. You're not paying the
Uh-huh.
$60,000 cost or $25,000 cost all at once. It's by, incrementally, but you also get a tax credit.
Mm.
So I forget the amount for this year. I want to say 14,000, but whatever you can easily search the number.
Sure.
Just go online and find out what the adoption tax credit is for 2024. And it hasn't really changed over the last couple of
Okay.
years, but that's a huge benefit, right? If you're thinking
Absolutely.
about, a $35,000 fee from an agency, knocking $14,000 off, you're not getting it in
Right.
cash, but you're getting it
Right.
off of your taxes.
Wow.
And
Uh-huh.
there are many scholarships out there. There are agencies, and some of the agencies have their own scholarship programs. There are foundations out there that give money to people
Really?
who are looking to adopt. Yeah, so, and
Oh
you can
my
do
God.
crowdfunding if you wanted to, get your
Oh
family and
my.
friends involved in your dream of motherhood. So
Oh,
it shouldn't, don't let money be the factor that stops you either.
okay. Okay. Wow, that's some great information. Um, you talked about a holistic approach to um, when you for adoption, right? Tell us about the holistic approach.
So I think of the adoption process as an ongoing journey. It's not just
Uh-huh.
one thing, right?
Okay.
It's a series of minor miracles that leads up to a major miracle. And so
Mm.
I like to take care of my clients mentally. Like, where are you? Is this something that you really feel like you are called to? Is
Mm-hmm.
this something that you want, or that you feel there's an expectation from family, or vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
So dealing with mindset, um, that
Mm.
what I'm working with one client who's just starting their adoption journey, and a
Yeah.
client that's already doing their paperwork, and a client that is bringing baby home, and a client that's had a baby home for a year is completely different. But it
Mm.
all involves remembering to honor what it is that you want for your life. What is your truth? How is it that you would want someone to treat and interact with you?
Right.
So there's no, when I talk about working with birth families,
Yeah.
right, they're not the enemy. They're not the enemy. When I say open adoption, I mean, not only are you having a conversation or in conversation with them, it could be through a social worker, through the agency. Mine happens to be direct contact, and we
Mm-hmm.
decided that in the hospital. It's
Okay.
all individualized, but it
Sure.
also means open, in that within your home, your child understands how your family came to be because of how they were brought into your life. There's no secrets, there's no fear. We don't operate in fear. And
Okay.
holistically, if we can erase fear from the whole process,
Mm-hmm.
you breathe. And I say that with a lot of looking back, because
Yeah.
when I say, Cassandra, I had my hands on the wheel trying to direct traffic and make this process go faster, because as a single woman, I was told, yeah, you can adopt, but it's going to take you about a year and a half before you find a birth parent that's going to
Oh
be
wow.
willing to give to
Oh
have
my
you be
God.
their child's
Uh-huh.
parent because you're
Yeah.
single. That
Right.
turned out not to be true. Again, we
Uh-huh.
can't listen to what everyone tells us, right? Because what God has for us is for us, and his timing
Right.
is beyond anything that man can construct.
Okay.
So we can't go with what normally happens, because every single adoption story is slightly different in some way. I mean, there's
Wow.
no two ways that it all happened, right? And
Right.
so holistically, we deal with the whole person, the whole you, making sure you're confident in who you are, confident in your decisions, confident in your judgment, confident in your ability to create a relationship with the birth parents,
Mhm.
confident in being able to go after the other dreams in your life that you have for yourself. That
Right.
includes marriage, if it includes that, if it
Mhm.
includes changing how you are now
Mhm.
employed because you now want to be home with your child
Sure.
instead of being away 9 to 5 and having a babysitter. Like you didn't go through all of that to become a
Right.
mother to then spend all these hours outside of the house. So I find a lot of women then decide to become entrepreneurs or work from home
Sure.
so they can still have that experience of being able to be a full-time mom.
What do you think? What is the benefit for the birth mother, from your opinion, to know where? I know there are advantages and disadvantages for the birth mother to know where their child is, because I know people who have adopted someone and they didn't want the mother to know because they thought when the child got older they want to go see their mom, they want to find their
Right.
mother or whatever.
Right.
So what I guess I said the benefits or advantages maybe, or disadvantages, because it sounds like for you what you wanted was to know the birth mother. You wanted to be involved in that. um were you
Yeah.
were you hesitant, or did you want to know? Did you wanted your child to know the birth
Right.
mother? Uh-huh. And
So
why was
I
that?
Right. So I'm a very inquisitive person. I probably could have been a private detector. Like
Uh-huh.
I have questions. That's why I'm good with interviews because I have questions. I want to know what the answer is, right? And so
Right.
like all of us, when we don't have the answer, usually the worst thing that can happen is that we create the answer in our head. And the answer is probably so far away from the truth that it either stops us in our place from moving forward or we're working off of wrong assumption. So I didn't want to do that. I don't like to live my life that way. I like to have direct talks with people, right? And I sometimes it's very difficult, right? It's not easy
Okay.
to have a heart to heart.
Sure.
So yes, I definitely wanted to know who she was. I did not have that privilege in the pregnancy. It wasn't until the day she was giving birth that I met her and we connected in the
Uh-huh.
delivery room. And that is where the
Oh.
open adoption, the openness came about because we said, oh, you're
Mm-hmm.
human. I'm human. All we want is
Mm-hmm.
for the best for this child. Do you want to keep in
Mm-hmm.
touch? Okay. And it's been respectful. It hasn't been like, I want pictures. Give me pictures. Who's the,
Yeah.
no, none of that. It's very respectful on their side. I'm very easily giving them pictures to say, hey, you probably want to see this picture, and be able to say, this is your child. Imagine if you placed a child up for adoption and you never saw them again, and perhaps you never even saw them
Yeah.
when you birthed them. What kind of stories are you creating in your head? You're constantly living in this place of I wonder, is this child
Wow.
walking past me, my daughter or my son? What would she
Right.
look like now? That's wasted
Yeah.
energy when you can easily have access to that. When I can say, hey, here's her first birthday. Here's this, here's that. By the way, who in your family is tall? Would you mind showing me what the rest of your family looks like? And these are things that happen over time, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
like a basic friendship, right? We're not asking you to be best buds. If you become best buds
Yeah.
over time, amazing.
Yeah.
But it's about
Yeah.
having a respectful relationship with the family that graced you with the thing that you said you wanted most.
Yeah.
And you asked God for it and he delivered. So that means
Yeah.
that I can only, and I should only consider my interaction with her with grace and love, as long as there's no reason for me to put separation. If there's a reason for me to
Mm-hmm.
be fearful about my child's well-being, okay, that's a whole different story. But that's not the reality. And that's not the reality for most people. In fact, birth parents, birth mothers who do not see their children,
Uh-huh.
who do not say goodbye in the hospital, are the ones who will cancel the adoption.
Uh-huh. I was
So
going to ask that. Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
why would you not? I I let my daughter's birth mother spend time with her at the hospital, say goodbye, mourn her. There's joy on one side in my room, right? Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, we're so happy
Yeah.
for you." And then you
Yeah.
have a mourning. It's almost like a death, right? There's
Sure.
you have
Sure.
to appreciate the grief that's going on the other side. And so
Mm-hmm.
how much better is it that you do not have an adoption that is
Wow.
being reversed because they have the answers, they have the relationship, and
Yeah.
everyone I talk to says it's the best thing. It makes their lives on both sides so much better. And imagine I'm raising a child who doesn't have to wonder, well, why wasn't I kept, and for people
Yeah.
say she'll go back to her mother. No, that's not her mother. I'm her
Now
mother.
you're her mother. Right.
That's
Mm-hmm.
her birth mother. That's her birth parent, the
Mm-hmm.
person who brought her into the world,
Mm-hmm.
but she doesn't know her as a mother. I'm the mother. So why would I have a fear that she'd want to, leave my home to go to her? Does she have a desire to get to know her? Absolutely. And that's normal. So
Uh-huh.
that's what we
Uh-huh.
work with.
Wow. Wow. And your coaching definitely supports that whole thing because you've probably seen it all as it relates to that. And as I indicated, I do know people who have adopted and as they get what they say they when they become teenagers, they say they start smelling themselves and they'll say, well, I'll go find my mother. It's just part of, I guess adolescence or whatever. Right. So
I mean,
what
there are
was the
people who will
most,
say that,
yeah,
but there are other kids who
right.
won't. It's not even a thought to them.
Okay. Okay. Great. Um, um, could Okay, so I was going to ask you about living on your terms. So that journey you went on, that transformative journey that you went on, that was on your terms, right? You were like, I still want to work. You traveled. You indicated when you had her, and she's how old now? 9.
Yeah, she'll be 10, and before her second birthday and
Mhm.
before the pandemic happened, we had visited 5 countries. I brought her with me everywhere. It was like, let's go.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's a great story. That's awesome. Um, um, Did you have be, being single? Was that a barrier initially because the agencies think that the child should have a mother and a dad? Like, what was your experience with that?
I
Because I
think
have
it's
met
more
several people. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily the agencies think that the child should have a mother and a dad. I think they
Okay.
think that the birth parent or the birth mother, more than likely, will want a double, a husband and wife for their
Yeah.
child, as
Okay.
opposed to a single
Okay.
family household. But a lot of birth mothers who are, in the adoption process or considering adoption come from single family homes. So it's not unusual for them to go, this makes sense to me.
Mhm.
This having her, a single mother, raise a child makes sense. It's okay.
Mhm.
And, in my case, the
Okay.
birth mother said, yeah, she's single, but she won't be for long and forever. And it's true. I mean, I
Mhm.
haven't found my husband yet, but I have every desire and intention to find him. And I know at the right time, it will happen.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Wow. Talk
And
about
I
because
should
I
also say,
know.
Cassandra, oh, sorry, I was going to say, I actually have a
Go ahead.
client who is still dating and she has a new baby that she just adopted. So if you
Uh-huh.
are on that track of dating, you don't have to stop it, right? As long as you have a great support system, you
Right.
can still go ahead and date because you still have that dream of finding a husband, of being a wife, of having your child have a father. So you can't sit
Mhm.
home for the rest of your life expecting to find a man. If that is
Mhm.
your desire, you have to get out. You
Mhm.
have to still date. You still have to have a life.
Right. I love your self. I think it's the self-reflection questionnaire. for individuals who are thinking. So you will provide that information for them, and then you will talk through it, because you want to make sure that the rationale behind wanting to adopt is not selfish, right?
Well, it's not necessarily selfish. It's more that you know what it is that you want, because you want to create an adoption plan.
Okay.
I've been using the term adoption doula, right? If you are
Mhm.
a woman who's pregnant and you want to set a birth plan about how you're going to deliver and all of that, you work with someone, a doula, to
Mhm.
record that. The same thing with me, right? I want you to say, do you want a boy? Do you want a girl? Does it matter? Do they can they have any kind of physical ailments? Do you want a black child, a
Mhm.
white child, a mixed child, this, that? I want you to be so clear,
Okay.
because in being clear, you will also call into, God will make it very happen that you will find the child that you are very clear about. And
Mhm.
so you don't have to worry that when presented by the agency with another child that's outside of what you said, you
Right.
can go back and say, I did say this, but does this really pertain to me right now? Would I be
Okay.
okay with a girl, even though I said I wanted a boy? It's a conversation piece. So it's not about selfishness. It's more about being selfish for yourself and not
Mhm.
being pulled here and there by other people's opinion about how
Mhm.
you should live your life based on your marital status if you
Right.
want to have a child.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I do remember, um, I had um, not saying any names, but an individual who wanted to adopt, and the parents were against it because she was single. So therefore, because her parents were against it, she never did. But by the grace of God, she got married, and he had children. So that helped in a great
Yes.
way. And then after that, then he had a child. So then she had a baby, a grandbaby. So it all worked
Right.
out. Yeah.
Well, there I will say that she still didn't get the child that she wanted, but
Right.
yes, it's, your spouse's kids are yours, but you
Mhm.
still wanted that little baby of yours that you could
Exactly.
say I raised from the cradle. Um, and I will say that it is not fair for other people in the family, including parents, to impose upon their adult children what it is that they want for their child, how to live their life when they've already had the chance to live their own life. And when
Hmm.
they are gone, who does your child have? Literally. I mean, my I was raised in a single family household. My dad passed away 10 years before my daughter came along, and then my mom passed away 10 months
Oh,
before my daughter to be came to
oh,
was
wow.
born. So if I
Mhm.
had listened, if that's not the case, right? Neither said anything about my situation. But if that had been the case, where am I when I don't have a mother, a father, brothers or sisters?
Mhm.
But I have this huge desire, but because I felt it was more important to live up to their expectations of me rather than my desire for my own happiness, what will make me happy, I'm left holding an empty bag. No. No,
Mhm.
they live their life. You say, thank you so very much. I appreciate and respect your opinion, but I have to do what's in my heart. And I pray that you will come around and support me when I bring your grandchild home.
Well
Boom,
said. Well
boom,
said.
right?
Right.
That's it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm
Not
and
to
I'm
say that,
right, and that's why I was talking about people are stuck. They're stuck because of what somebody else wants them to do, not being their true self, and not living on their terms. And it's not a bad thing. It's what you want. It's not what other people want. But yet you can share that with respect, to the
right,
parent or whomever thinks that it's not a great idea, and for them to state it as you did. And I think that was well said. And I think it definitely needed to be said. on is your way in your way, because that's one way you get in your way, by doing and wanting to do to please other people. So thanks so much for
Yeah.
saying that.
And you said something earlier about, being a career woman. We know that statistically, people who have higher degrees tend to not have as many children and they have them later. Now,
Mhm.
add a layer of Black women, minority women, right? There are less counterparts on that same educational level.
Yep.
There's the mismatch of numbers happens, right?
Right.
So you have to then decide, okay, how am I going to proceed forward? And we then couple all of that with the cultural normalities of, in our culture, Black culture, you are told to be respectful of your elders. You listen to
Mhm.
what they say. You
Right.
speak when you're spoken to only, and not any. And all those layers makes there a record playing in the background that keeps us from living our authentic lives. And
Right.
so at some point we have to break that record. We have to say, I have to
Mhm.
go against the norm
Mhm.
and live according to what God has placed in my heart. And I'm a reasonable woman. I'm a smart woman. I'm an
Mhm.
educated woman. I know a few things about life. So
Right.
I know what's
Exactly.
best for me, and
Right.
trust that.
Exactly. Exactly. Well said, Io. I love that. So call to action, because as I indicated, even if my listeners have this desire to think what you're talking about is something that they always wanted but didn't, because of those roadblocks that you just talked about, um, I wanted you to um, tell them how to get to your, what I say, your guided self-reflection questionnaire. In this way, it'll help them to understand what they truly want and how to prepare. And I am challenging those who have this desire or this urge or something you've always wanted, to make a move and do that call to action plan with the questionnaire. So again, share with them, my listeners, how can they get to that questionnaire, and what they can expect after they complete it.
So there are no right or wrong answers to the questionnaire. It's really for us to, for you to have a conversation with yourself, write it down, and then we'll have a conversation. And you can find that questionnaire and other resources regarding adoption on my website called openadoptionsuccess.com. You can also find me through adoptiondoula.com. It'll go straight there. I'm working on other resources. I'm almost finished with a blueprint, the single woman's blueprint for adopting.
Mm,
And that'll take them through a webinar, and then it'll be a longer course, a
mhm,
4-week course. So stay in touch with me. New things are developing all the time. I have group coaching. I have a Facebook group also that they can find. I'm easily found on social media. And I'm excited to be able to work with any woman and any couple, actually. Couples are coming
yeah,
now too,
yeah.
who have a heart to have a child, and they just need to know how to navigate that path to
Mhm,
adoption, and then to establish a relationship with the birth mother or birth family that
mhm,
leads to openness, and a child who will feel very loved from both sides.
mm. So, listeners, take this as a confirmation of something that you perhaps been thinking. Maybe you're not able to have you to be the birth mother, but you can still be the mother. So I just encourage you, and I want to thank Ayo for her time. This has opened up my eyes. This is something that I'm not familiar with at all, but thanks to Miss Haynes, she's opened my eyes and increased my understanding. And as I come across individuals, which I'm certain that I will certainly refer them to you, Io. And I just want to thank you for being the person, the doula, the advocate, something unique, something I've not heard of before. And I know from this, because my listeners are going to share this, it's going to be on all podcast platforms. And I asked if you like this podcast or love the podcast, please click subscribe to it. And also feel free to share it with anybody that you know this will be a blessing to. So again, I could talk. I have more questions because I'm a curious person, but we can't go on and on. But my listeners, they know how to get in touch with you. And I just want to thank you very, very much for what you're offering the world. God bless you. Bye for
Thank
now.
you so much.
Yeah, and my listeners, I say to you, bye for now as well. God bless.